Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading today from Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, Text 9. Tasmai swalokam bhagavan sabhajitaha sandarshayama saparam nayat param vyapeta sanklesha vimoha sadhavasam Swadrishtavadbhir purushairabhishtuttam Tasmai swalokam bhagavan sabhajitaha Sandarshayamas asaparam nayatparam Vyapeta sanklesha vimoha sadhavasam Swadrishtavadbhir purushair abhishtuttam Tasmai swalokam bhagavan sabhajitaha Sandarshayamasa param nayat param Vyapeta sanklesha vimoha sadhvasam Swadrishtavadbhir purushair abhishtuttam Tasmai swalokam bhagavan sabhajitaha Sandarshayamasa param nayat param Vyapeta sanklesha vimoha sadvasam Swadrishtavadbhir purushair abhishtutam Tasmai, unto him, Swalokam, his own planet or abode, Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Sabhajitaha, being pleased by the penance of Brahma, Sandarshayam asa, manifested, Param, the Supreme, Na, not, Yat, of which, Param, further Supreme, Vyapeta, completely given up, Sanklesha, 5 kinds of material afflictions, Vimoha, without illusion, Sadhvasam, fear of material existence, Svadrishtavadbhihi, by those who have perfectly realized the self, Purushaihi, by persons, Abhishtutam, worshipped by. Translation: the personality of Godhead, being thus very much satisfied with the penance of Lord Brahma, was pleased to manifest his personal abode, Vaikuntha, the supreme planet above all others. This transcendental abode of the Lord is adored by all self-realized persons, freed from all kinds of miseries and fear of illusory existence. Purport. A heads up, today's purport is very nectarian. The troubles of penance accepted by Lord Brahma were certainly in the line of devotional service, bhakti. Otherwise there is no chance that Vaikuntha or Svalokam, the Lord's personal abodes, would become visible to Brahmaji. The personal abodes of the Lord, known as Vaikunthas, are neither mythical nor material, as conceived by the impersonalists. But realization of the transcendental abodes of the Lord is possible only through devotional service, and thus the devotees enter into such abodes. There is undoubtedly trouble in executing penance, but the trouble accepted in executing bhakti yoga is transcendental happiness from the very beginning, whereas the trouble of penance in other processes of self-realization, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, etc., without any Vaikuntha realization, ends in trouble only and nothing more. There is no profit in biting husks without grains. Similarly, there is no profit in executing troublesome penances other than bhakti yoga for self-realization. Executing bhakti yoga is exactly like sitting on the lotus sprouted off the abdomen of the transcendental personality of Godhead, for Lord Brahma was seated there. Brahmaji was able to please the Lord, and the Lord was also pleased to show Brahmaji his personal abode. Srila Jiva Goswami, in the comments of his Krama Sandarbha annotation of the Srimad Bhagavatam, cites quotations from the Garga Upanishad, Vedic evidence. It is said that Yajnavalkya described the transcendental abode of the Lord to Gargi, and that the abode of the Lord is situated above the highest planet of the universe, namely Brahma Lok. This abode of the Lord, although described in revealed scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, remains only a myth for the less intelligent class of men with a poor fund of knowledge. Herein the word Swadrishtavadbhihi is very significant. One who has actually realized his self realizes the transcendental form of oneself. Impersonal realization of self and the Supreme is not complete, because it is just an opposite conception of material personalities. The personality of Godhead and the personalities of devotees of the Lord are all transcendental. They do not have material bodies. The material body is overcast with 5 kinds of miserable conditions, namely ignorance, material conception, attachment, hatred, and absorption. As long as one is overwhelmed by these 5 kinds of material miseries, there is no question of entering into the Vaikuntha lokas. The impersonal conception of oneself is just a negation of material personality and is far from the positive existence of personal form. The personal forms of the transcendental abode will be explained in the following verses. Brahmaji also described the highest planet of Vaikuntha lokas as Goloka Vrindavan, where the Lord resides as a cowherd boy by keeping transcendental surabhi cows and surrounded by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. Chintamani prakara sadmasu kalpabriksha lakshavriteshu surabhir abhipalayantam Lakshmi sahasrashata sambrahma sevyamanam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. The statement of the Bhagavad Gita, Yad gatva na nivartante tad dhama paramam mama, is also confirmed herewith. Param means transcendental Brahman. Therefore, the abode of the Lord is also Brahman, non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is known as Vaikuntha, and his abode is also known as Vaikuntha. Such Vaikuntha realization and worship can be made possible by transcendental form and sense. Again, the translation. The personality of Godhead, being thus very much satisfied with the penance of Lord Brahma, was pleased to manifest his personal abode, Vaikuntha, the supreme planet above all others. This transcendental abode of the Lord is adored by all self-realized persons, freed from all kinds of miseries and fear of illusory existence. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jugatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvashe Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, we have heard a very sweet purport. Srila Prabhupada is pulling a great significance out of this shlok. There are multiple related and yet distinct implications of this text. We are soon reaching the Chatur Shloki, which is very sweet. It is the first speaking of Bhagavatam, within at least the line that this Bhagavatam is coming to us. So, soon we are hearing of the 4 verses, the seed shloks, in which Bhagavatam will be spoken within the Bhagavatam. There are some indications in the writings of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur that actually these 4 shloks are inherent in the heart of the jiva, and that they must merely be uncovered. But, anyways, Srila Prabhupada, he is not yet discussing the Chatur Shloki. He is discussing the nature of Vaikuntha Loka and the nature of devotional service. Because one can wonder this when they hear a text like this, that the personality of Godhead, being thus very much satisfied with the penance of Lord Brahma, that the personality of Godhead appears to be satisfied, and satisfied in such a way that he is revealing Vaikuntha Loka. Vaikuntha Loka is not, as this material world is, determined by physics or determined by 3 modes of material nature. It is independent of all these things. As we will hear in the following texts, over the next few days, there will be the description of Vaikuntha Loka. But Vaikuntha Loka ultimately, being the internal domain, the internal manifested and maintained through the internal potencies, not the external potencies. It is inherently presided over by the Swarupa Shakti, by the Chit Shakti. And therefore, unlike this world, which is having its momentum, having its motion ruled by the reciprocation of Krishna's external potency with all of the karma, all of the lust, all of the desires of the various nitya-baddha jivas, the various eternally conditioned jivas. Instead, Vaikuntha Loka is defined by bhakti. So in order to have Vaikuntha Loka revealed to one must have bhakti. It is not that some people can reach bhakti, can reach Vaikuntha through some means, and others reach it through bhakti. This is sometimes a presentation we hear. Toto pot, toto mot, something like this, they say in Bengal. As many paths, there is as many ways. For each person, there is their own way. Sometimes, especially today, it's very fashionable. You are finding your way to the divine. I am finding my way to the divine. They will say like this. And they'll say, of course, because Krishna says, Ye yatham mam prapadyante, tam tathaivam bhajamyaham. Krishna says this. So naturally, what is Krishna saying here? Everyone is on my path. Very nice. That means everyone, in their own way, they are realizing the divine. You realize it through devotion to Krishna. That person realizes it through meditating on Brahman. And I realize it by watching the Mahabharata TV show and eating chicken. And this is how we are all realizing Krishna. This is all how we will all eventually taste Vaikuntha. I hear this sometimes, especially when I go to India and I'm with my relatives, and they'll have some of their friends come over. And my relatives, they don't, they're Gauriya Vaishnavas, the majority. Some of them have converted to being Shaktas, Kali worshippers. But the majority are Gauriya Vaishnavas. But sometimes they'll bring their friends along. And I still remember one of them, he would always say, bro, he'd be like, come on bro, this is your way, but this is not my way. I'll have a girlfriend, I'll have illicit sex, but this is my way of eventually going to Vaikuntha. This is my way, bro. Who made you in charge of telling me how I'm going to go back to Vaikuntha? As if it's a given, as if it's some welfare activity that everyone is entitled by a basic right to go back home, back to Godhead. And that therefore, no matter what one does, they're all walking on that path. But this is not what Krishna says. Because his point is valid. Who am I to tell him how to go back home, back to Godhead? I'm no one. But Krishna is everyone to say that. And Krishna does not say, mess around and find out. Krishna does not, well, Krishna does say, mess around and find out. But you're not going to find out that you're going back home, back to Godhead. Because what does he say? He says, Ye yatham mam prapadyante tam tathaivam bhajamyaham. Everyone is on my path. But he's not saying whether they're coming towards him or going away. He's not saying everyone is on my path and they're all coming towards me. Krishna is not saying there are many paths and they all lead to me. Krishna does not say this. Krishna is saying there's one path. Srila Prabhupada renders it as in the singular, there is one path. But we know there are two directions on every path. And how can we know this for certain? Because yayatam mam prapadyante. Krishna, he is reciprocating the mood. And if somebody is having a mood, off, again, watching the Mahabharata TV show, and they really like Karna, and everyone does really like Karna, and they really like Karna, and they don't eat chicken on Fridays, or maybe they eat all meats, but they only eat chicken on Fridays, or on Tuesdays, or whatever speculative nonsense these rascals, so-called followers of the Vedas, will concoct in their complete rebellion against Krishna. If they're doing this, they're only running away from Krishna. Performing some garbha during a special time of the year, and meticulously avoiding onion and garlic, while they continue pushing for their careers and sense gratification in the form of wealth. This is also running away from Krishna. Not just those who eat chicken, those who are strictly and fanatically vegetarian, who would not even look at some onion, who would never even look at some garlic, let alone chicken. They are just as much running away from Krishna, not running towards him. Because what is the point that Srila Prabhupada is making? It is not, it is not just penance that will bring Vaikuntha Loka. It is bhakti. So therefore, in order for Vaikuntha Loka to be present, there must have been bhakti. Because bhakti and bhakti alone is moving towards Krishna. Everything else is either staying still or moving back. Only bhakti will bring us closer to Krishna. And this is what Krishna is saying. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam brajaham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayashyami mashuchaha. Only by abandoning all other varieties of religion. Because sometimes people will say like this. I hear sometimes some of the youth, they read Bhagavad Gita, which is great. All glories to their worship of Krishna in the form of the transcendental conversation of the Bhagavad Gita. But they will say there's all these things. There's karma yoga, there's jnana yoga, there's all these ashtanga yoga, dhyana yoga, bhakti yoga. They're all here. How can we say then, if Krishna is recommending them, how can we say that bhakti is the best? And they'll say, maybe we can say bhakti is the best, but are the other ones not also valid? Isn't bhakti the fastest way? They'll hear this sometimes in preaching. We'll emphasize that devotional service, we will get results from bhakti so much faster. And then they'll say, well, can't we then just say, let them stay on the path of jnana yoga. It's just the slower path. We have the fastest path, but eventually they'll come around to it. But actually this is incorrect as well. Because Srila Prabhupada is making the point that only by bhakti can these goals be achieved. It is not that the other ones are slower on their own. It's that other ones on their own can achieve nothing. They're just slower when they're mixed with bhakti already. Bhakti is the efficacious ingredient in all of this. None of it works without bhakti. Because bhakti is the only thing that can manifest spiritual goals. Because Srila Prabhupada is making the point, not even that there is no chance of Vaikuntha Loka appearing, but there is no chance of the Lord being satisfied by penances alone. Otherwise we might say penances are very good. But it is the implication that there was bhakti being performed. That Krishna was pleased enough to manifest Vaikuntha. All these other parts in the Bhagavad Gita, sometimes we present, you've completed Bhakti Shastri. We know the yoga ladder. At the bottom we have karma, and then we go all the way up, and at the top we have bhakti. And so people say, bhakti is the perfection of all these other yoga processes. Naturally. So there's all these categories of bhakti, of yoga, but bhakti is at the top. And while this is the way it is taught, and this is not incorrect, this is how Bhagavad Gita teaches it, when we dive deeper into Bhagavad Gita, and when we dive deeper into Srimad Bhagavatam, bhakti is not another variety of yoga. Bhakti is in its own category. Bhakti is independent of all other categories, of all other factors, and it is fully supreme. So karma is dependent on so many things. Karma yoga is very much dependent on material factors. Karma and jnana, they are developments of each other. But bhakti is not the development of jnana. It is not that after practicing so much jnana yoga, you move up the yoga ladder. Bhakti is independent of all other factors. It is merely put there because it is the highest as we go through the various levels of yoga. But it is not that after being purified enough by jnana, one reaches bhakti. Only bhakti causes bhakti itself. So therefore, bhakti is supreme. And only bhakti can please Krishna. Actually, nothing else can satisfy Krishna. In this month, we are singing every night. Rudantam muhur netra yugmam rijantam karam bhoja yugmena satanka netram. What comes next? Muhushvasa kampa trirekanka kanta stita graivam damodaram, and then bhakti baddham. Srila Sanatana Goswami gives a few meanings of this term bhakti baddham. And one of them is that bhakti baddham means bhaktyaiva baddham. You will find this in commentaries to the Shastras, which of course Damodarashtakam is. It is the poetic works of Srila Satyavrata Muni, recorded by Vyasadeva in the Padma Purana. We'll find in their commentaries often they will take words of poetry and they will expand out what they mean. They won't comment on it, but they'll just say, this is what the verse means. They won't bring out further implications necessarily. They'll just gloss it, is the technical term. So in the gloss, he gives 3 different glosses. In and one is bhaktiyaiva baddham. That this Damodar, he is not just bound by bhakti, but bhaktiyaiva baddham. He is bound by bhakti alone. Nothing but bhakti can bind Krishna. And so often we make the point that the rope that's being tied around Krishna's belly, this rope is 2 fingers short. This is famous, we know. One finger represents the mercy of the Lord, another finger represents the aspiration of the devotee. But another meaning that can be taken from this, in the pastime, is that it was 2 fingers short because Mother Jashoda's bhakti, her parental love, was still not overflowing enough yet. Of course, Mother Jashoda, she is having so much transcendental love for Krishna. It is not that she is not having an infinite amount of love. But by this tension of pushing in the fight, that love comes out more and more and more. It was when her maternal Vatsalya Prem was becoming stronger and stronger as she just wanted to lovingly chastise her beloved Damodar. As this was becoming stronger and stronger, then that Damodar, whose bhakti baddham, was bound. Not that he is bound by anything else. Bhaktiyaiva baddham. He is bound only by the love of his devotee. And therefore Mother Jashoda, as she tied Damodar up, she tied him how? Because in that tension of still not being able to tie it, her love became stronger and stronger and stronger. And then becoming so strong, eventually Krishna, who again is bhaktiyaiva baddham, is bhakti baddham, he was unable to resist the overwhelming power of Mother Jashoda's love. So like this, we find Krishna, he is only conquered by bhakti. In fact, Srila Jiva Goswami says that Krishna doesn't even know about the existence, almost, in a sense, of the non-devotees. In a sense, he doesn't even know they're there. Because all that Krishna cares about is bhakti. This is why Krishna, obviously, he knows everything. He knows they're there, but he's not contemplating it. And that especially their sufferings. Jiva Goswami, he makes this point, that Krishna, he is constantly playing with his friends, and he's thinking about his devotees on earth. He's thinking about his devotees in the material world, because they are connected to that devotion, which Krishna is so bound by. But his non-devotees, the pain they feel, the sufferings they feel, Krishna cannot relate with this. Krishna has never tasted that pain, because all that Krishna has ever tasted is bhakti. Bhakti everywhere. This is what Krishna consumes. This is his lifeblood. So Krishna, he is not so much realizing the pain, in a sense, of his non-devotees. And we might find this confusing because we hear throughout Shastra that Krishna, he is so compassionate, he is so merciful upon the conditioned souls. How can we reconcile this? Krishna is compassionate, Srila Jiva Goswami says, on these conditioned souls. How? Through his devotees. Because his devotees, they have experienced the pains of material existence. They have experienced reality that is not filled with bhakti. And so because of their empathy, through them Krishna is able to realize the sufferings of the conditioned souls. And therefore through them he gives mercy unto his non-devotees. Because bhakti is independent and supreme. Bhakti does not rely on anything else but bhakti itself in order to spread itself, in order to be realized. It is because of the bhakti in the hearts of the great devotees that bhakti is born in the hearts of anyone else. Bhakti Devi, she utilizes the bhaktas as her tool in order to go wherever she wants. Even Krishna cannot control bhakti. Krishna is the source of bhakti, because bhakti is the Swarupa Shakti. But the Swarupa Shakti is independent even of Krishna. And therefore bhakti is independent and supreme. Not just of material factors. Not just of time, place, circumstance, the 3 modes of material nature. Not just of all other forms of yoga. But bhakti is independent and supreme even of Krishna. Even Parameshwar, Krishna, Parameshwareshwar, the Lord of Parameshwar, even he is not the Ishwar over bhakti, because bhakti is independent and supreme. And therefore this is the great glory of the devotees. This is the great glory. The Vaishnavas, we have such a great esteem for them. In fact, we worship them even more than we worship Krishna. The worship of the Vaishnavas, this is the highest thing. Srila Rupa Goswami, he has given in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He says Guru Bhakti is what? It is an anga of Krishna Bhakti. We've heard this before maybe. But Srila Jiva Goswami, he says the opposite. He says actually we should understand that in the world of spiritual life, it is all Guru Bhakti. And our devotion to Krishna is just an anga, it is just a limb of our devotion to Guru. We worship Guru not because we worship Krishna. We worship Krishna because we worship Guru. We know the shlok, Anyabhilashita shunyam, dhyana karma dhyanavrittam, anukulyena krishnanu, shilanam bhaktiruttama. And there are the two vrittis. There's the lakshana vritti and there is the tatastha vritti. We know this from Bhakti Shastri. Do you remember which one is which? One is the essence of the shlok and one is the external aspect, the implication. Do you remember? No. So the tatastha, like the tatastha jivas, marginal, on the fringes of the essence. And then there is the lakshana vritti, the essence. And what is the essence of the shlok? Anyabhilashita shunyam. Such an essential shlok. The shlok has the whole definition of what bhakti is. The shlok we should be meditating on every day. The lakshana, the essential part, is anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhaktiruttama. What is the essence of devotion? The essence of devotion is to worship Krishna without any other desire. To worship Krishna wholeheartedly, exactly as Krishna wants it done. This is Uttam Bhakti. To worship Krishna in a favorable mood as Krishna desires. And therefore, what is the tatastha vritti, the external consideration? It is anyabhilashita shunyam, jnana karma dhyanavritam. Because naturally, if we serve Krishna favorably as he desires, there's the implication, the external aspect, which is that we will be devoid of any other desire, any desire for any other thing. So we understand this, but in turn, we should wonder to ourselves, there's so many activities then which are anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhaktiruttama. There's so many activities. There's chanting our rounds. There's cleaning, menial service. There's so many things. There's offering the lamp, performing arti, singing bhajans, performing kirtan, hearing Krishna Katha, speaking Krishna Katha, studying Srimad Bhagavatam devotionally. These are all anukulyena krishnanu shilanam. How can we understand it all? Often I hear this from youth. They ask this and that, and I'll say, you know, Shastra says this, Shastra says that. And at one point they say, it's too complicated. I'm trying, but now there's another rule coming up, there's another thing I should do. I'm just trying to chant my rounds, and now there's Ekadashi. I'm doing Ekadashi and I'm chanting my rounds, but now there's Purushottam Mas, now there's Kartik. What's this? And then just you wait until they start hearing about Chaturmasya. Then they're gone. And they say all these things. But in a sense, even within the Lakshana Vritti, the essence of devotion, of anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhaktiruttama, even within that, we have almost external considerations, and then we have the actual heart of bhakti. And what is that actual heart? What is the lakshana of the lakshana? What is the essence of the essence? What is it, do you think? It is service to Guru and Vaishnava. I tell them, if you are confused by all these things, ignore all of them. It doesn't matter. They say, how many books do I need to read before I even know how to practice devotional service? And I say, at this point, you've missed the point. Just surrender to your spiritual authority. Surrender to your spiritual authority, try to please them, do as they say. If you do this sincerely, then you'll go back home, back to Godhead. Then you've executed all that you need to do in order to have perfection in spiritual life. We can overcomplicate it so much. Prabhu, you need to offer the lamp this many times around Krishna's lotus feet. These things are good. These things are all great. But at the heart of it, we do not need to fret. We do not need to be anxious. Did I do this wrong? Well, I know to go back home, back to God. Did I do this wrong? Am I not doing this? We will be able to churn out so many things in the Shastras. Some Shastras say, if you wear neck beads without offering them first, without sprinkling the water from certain holy rivers onto it, then you will go straight to hell. Some Shastras say like this. And we may think, oh my God, I might have worn neck beads and forget about sprinkling certain holy water on it. So maybe once or twice in my life I wore neck beads without offering them. It is possible. But we shouldn't have such anxieties. We should have such anxieties, though, if we are following every rule of the Shastras, but we are not sincerely surrendering ourselves to the instruction of Guru, both our Shiksha Gurus and our Diksha Guru. If we are not doing that, then we have every reason to worry, even if we are perfectly following everything else. Because the essence is Guru Bhakti. It is service to Vaishnavas. Because the Vaishnava is everything that we aspire to be. The Guru is everything we aspire to be. The Guru is having that devotion that we need. What does Mahaprabhu say? Who can be Guru? Kiba Vipro, Kibo Nashi, Shudro Kene Hoye, Krishna Totto Veta, no, She Guru Totto Veta, She Guru Hoye. It doesn't matter if one is a Brahmin, a Shudra, a sannyasi. If one knows Krishna Tattva, and how can one know Krishna Tattva? Only through bhakti. He is a Guru. So naturally, the Guru is the Vaishnava. There is not a non-Vaishnava Guru. So Vaishnava Seva, Guru Seva, in one sense, they are one and the same. And they are the highest of all things. They are even higher than chanting. Srila Jagadananda Das Pandit. Jagadananda Das Pandit, he has written this wonderful book, Prema Vivarta. And in it, he says, Krishna Nama Nahi Hoye, Nama Khor Bahiroye, Bote, Tobu Namo Kobhu Noi Bhai. So, he says here, he says this in Bengali. What he's saying is we may chant the holy name. We may try to chant the holy name. But if we do not chant it in Vaishnav Sangha, if we are not in Sadhu Sangha when we chant the holy name will not appear. The syllables of the holy name will appear on our tongue, but the holy name itself will not appear. Only the external form, the syllables, Krish and Na, will appear on our tongue. But Krishna, Nam Prabhu, the holy name will not appear if we are not having the association of the Vaishnavas. If we are having a sadhu sangha, O sadhu shonge, O sadhu shonge bhai, O brother, in the association of sadhu, of non-devotees, then Krishna Nam nahi hoy. The holy name of Krishna will not appear. Maybe only the letters will appear, but the name itself will never appear. This is the understanding we should have. So this is the value of Vaishnava Seva. It is so important. And there's a pastime from Ramanujacharya's pastimes that illustrates this point. Ramanujacharya, he had the desire in his heart. He wanted to go to visit some of his disciples. Not his disciples. He wanted to go visit a dham. And so it was a long trip. So he knew he had to take a break in one city. And he knew he had a city, a village, with two of his disciples. One was very rich and one was not so rich, very poor. Do you know this pastime? Okay. So in this pastime he was traveling through, and so he knew he could take refuge in this one city. And so he sent out two of his disciples, and he sent them out and he said, "Go and tell one of my disciples, Yagyesh, go tell him that I am coming, and tell him to prepare." And so the two disciples, they went out forth, and they went to visit. And they visited Yagyesh. And visiting Yagyesh, they said, "Guru Maharaj, he is coming." And of course, this disciple of Ramanujacharya, Yagyesh, he was so ecstatic, thinking, "Guru Maharaj, he's coming, and he's staying in my house. There is no more fortunate soul than me." And in this mood, he was constantly thinking. He was constantly thinking, how will I prepare the prasad for Guru Maharaj? I have so much wealth, now I can finally give it all in service of Guru Dev. Guru Maharaj has come. Now I will be able to serve the great Vaishnava of Guru Dev so much. And in his excitement, he did not serve the two messengers. His two god brothers, he didn't give even a glass of water to, even a cup of water. We know Parikshit Maharaj, what did he get angry at? What were the three things that were not given to him? Water, yeah, and words, nice words, and a place to sit, like this, I think. What were you thinking? Yeah, the Prabhupada mentions three, and he says he wasn't given hospitality, he wasn't given words of respect, and he wasn't given water. So, Parikshit Maharaj, we became very angry over that. But not even water was given either to these god brothers of Yagyesh. With this, they were very upset. They were thinking, why were we mistreated so much? And so they went back to Ramanujacharya. And they told Ramanujacharya, they said, "Gurudev, we went and we told Yagyesh, you are coming, Gurudev. Gurudev is coming to you." But he did not even give us water. He mistreated us like this. And Ramanujacharya, who was livid, completely angry. And he said, there is no way we will go to his house. Instead, go and tell the other disciple, the poor Brahmin. And this poor Brahmin, he was very poor. He lived hand to mouth. Every day he would go out and he would beg and beg and beg. And from whatever little he would get from begging, him and his beautiful wife, Lakshmi, they would eat that. But they were very happy because both were very pure devotees. They were very happy with this, to execute devotional service like this. So Ramanujacharya said, initially he didn't want to go to his poorer disciple, not because he thought, oh, he's poor, but because he thought, I don't want to inconvenience him. I know he's already struggling financially. I know he will struggle to provide for me. But I know because he is such a pure disciple, maybe he will give up his food for weeks in order to provide a luscious feast for me. So I do not want to inconvenience my poor disciple. So I wanted to go to the richer disciple. But after this offense to his god brothers, I will go now to the poorer Brahmin. And so he sent his messengers, and he was ecstatic. So he knew Guru Maharaj is coming. So he went out. And he went out the next day with the intent of begging and begging and begging enough in order to create an opulent feast. But Ramanujacharya, he arrived. And he arrived while this poor disciple was still begging. He was still begging for alms. And he was not getting much. So his wife, however, the chaste and wonderful wife, Lakshmi, she was there to welcome Ramanujacharya, and she gave wonderful worship to Ramanujacharya and all her god brothers. But when she went into the kitchen, she realized, we have no rice grains. Forget about all the items she wanted to worship, to offer. We think, I often think, actually I often meditate on Ekadashis, on Jai Pataka Maharaj's Vyas Puja, on Ekadashi. All of the wonderful items that are offered. In Mayapur, you'll find more wonderful items offered on Jai Pataka Maharaj's Vyas Puja than even on Gaur Purnima. The prasad, the day of the year, that you want to be honoring prasad on is Jai Pataka Maharaj's Vyas Puja. And rightfully so. We should worship and love the spiritual master. So forget about all these wonderful items that she wanted to offer. She didn't even have a husk of a grain of rice to give to Ramanujacharya. And at this point, she became very, very upset. But she remembered, just down the road, there was a very lusty businessman. And this lusty businessman, he would always send messengers to Lakshmi. He would always send, because she was very beautiful, and he would send messengers with all these beautiful items of jewelry, all of these wonderful offerings of money, to try to seduce her away from her husband. He was trying to think, he was thinking, I'm a rich businessman. Why is she staying with this poor guy? She's such a beautiful woman. She should go with a lusty businessman like me. So he thought like this, and he would send all of these people. And Lakshmi, being such a chaste and wonderful devotee, of course, I mean, forget about being a wonderful devotee, just basic human dignity. She would say no. But she didn't even contemplate it. The moment she saw the messengers, she would pretend they weren't there. She was so completely chaste to her husband. She completely ignored them. She wouldn't even accept any of the items and then say, but I'm saying no. They would say like this, take it, it's just a gift. He doesn't want anything in return, but he wouldn't mind something in return. Even then, she said, I don't even want to touch it. I don't even want to see it. But at this point, she thought, this might be my only option. How will I be able to get items to offer to Gurudev? How will I be able to offer Gurudev anything? There's no other recourse. My husband, he's still out begging, and I doubt he will come back with anything but a few grains of rice. That's what he normally comes back with. And so she went to the businessman. And the businessman, he was surprised to see her. He thought, I didn't send anything recently. I gave up. I realized there was a lost cause. And she appeared, and she said, whatever you want, I will do. Because she was thinking to herself, ultimately, all dharma is material. But service to Gurudev, service to the Vaishnavas, that is transcendental. So that rules over every other consideration. And so she said, whatever you want, I will do. But first, please provide some food, some bhoga. Because I need to feed my spiritual master. I need to offer something to him. And the businessman, he was like, that's all you wanted? I was giving you such expensive necklaces and everything. You just want a few vegetables? I can give you chicken if you want. And then she's like, no. No, I'm feeding my spiritual master. And so she went, and she went back. And such opulent items she was able to give. The text which records this pastime does not mention what items, but we can imagine, with so much wealth. Rasgullas, gulab jamun, maybe even, I would be happy to see some Karela, but I think I'd be the only one. So many nice items she prepared. And Ramanujacharya and all her godbrothers, they were like Jai, honoring Krishna Prasad, and they were honoring like this. But they were a little confused. How were such nice items prepared? How were these available? How did these come about? But still they thought to themselves, questions later, first let's honor this prasad. And at that point her husband returned home. And the husband returned home, and he saw all these items, and he was there with like a few grains of rice that he had obtained from his begging. And he was very confused. Anyways, he went to the kitchen to place those items into the pantry. And he spoke to his wife, and he said, what's up? What's up with all of this prasad? This is so nice, And where did you get all of this? And at this point, she thought, I have made such a terrible deal. Because now I'll have to tell my husband that I need to go back. I've given my word. I can't go back on my word. I'm going to have to tell my husband that I'm going to have to go to this lusty businessman. And who knows what lusty ideas he has in his head. I will have to go back to him. And now I have to tell my husband this terrible, terrible deal. A deal with the devil, practically, that I've done. And with her head hung low in shame, she tells everything. And at that point, the husband, he gets filled with a very strong emotion. But it is not anger. He becomes ecstatic. And he says, all glories to the Supreme Lord, who has given me such a wonderful wife, who realizes that Vaishnav Seva is higher than anything else. No, the Supreme Lord has given me a wife who so wonderfully understands the essence of all dharma, of all shastras, of all actions, of all devotional service. It is service to the Vaishnavas and service to the Guru. With this realization, even I do not have, but the Supreme Lord has given me such a wonderful wife who has this realization. He said, nevertheless, this is not the best situation. You have understood the essence of the Shastras, but let us go present the scenario to Gurudev. And so they went to Srila Ramanujacharya, Yatiraj. And Ramanujacharya, he heard. And hearing this, he spoke the glories of the wife. And he said, actually, if one is to read all of the Shastras and hear all the dharmas, they need only say one sentence to know the conclusion of all Vedic literature. The essence of all dharma. We hear many things. It's very common, especially in today's vague Hindu-Bindu mixture culture of whatever. They'll say, ahimsa parama dharma. We'll hear this often. Maybe you hear often. This is the one line of Shastra that people like to quote from Mahabharata. The highest dharma is ahimsa. Which very much, that's how they like to think, I'm vegetarian, jai, dharmic. Demons were vegetarian yugas ago. Again, to make the point of this shlok, someone might read this and think tapasya is the greater thing, but who did greater tapasya than Hiranyakashipu? No. The essence, even of devotional service, the essence is what Ramanujacharya said. Ahimsa is not paramadharma. Vaishnav seva paramadharma. Paramodharma. The highest dharma is service to the devotees and service to the Guru. This is even the essence of Krishna Bhakti. Even Krishna Bhakti is secondary. Krishna Bhakti is only a fraction. We do not worship Krishna. We do not worship the Guru because it pleases Krishna. We worship Krishna because it pleases the Guru. So Ramanujacharya, he said this. The essence of all Vedic literature, of all of the instructions, the essence of all of this is found in the one line, that Vaishnav Seva is the highest dharma. And in that sense, Vaishnav Seva, it overrides everything. So he also spoke the glories. Anyway, so he said, but we have some prasad left. I'll say the rest of the pastime. Actually, it goes on for a while. It's a really nectarian pastime. But I won't have time to wrap up then. So I'll just briefly say the end of the pastime. So Ramanujacharya then says, you go and take some prasadam with you. And so they went and they took the leftover prasadam. And this was not any old prasadam. To drive the point home that the glories of the Vaishnav, the glories of devotional service to the Vaishnav are higher than the glories of the devotional service to the Krishna. Is that this prasadam is then glorified. Because this is not the remnants of Krishna. It is, but it's the remnants of Krishna that are also the remnants of the devotee. The remnants of the remnants. And they've been made even higher. Even higher than Krishna Prasad are the remnants of the devotee left on the plate. This is the highest form of Maha. I know there's sometimes you hear devotees and they'll say, I'm waiting for the Maha, not because the Maha is nice. We all wait for the Maha because the Maha is nice. But they're waiting for the Maha because they think this is the highest thing. Actually, the highest thing that they could do is to eat the remnants of the plate of the other devotees. This would be the highest form of prasad. So, this prasad was being taken. And so they went to the businessman. And the husband, he stayed outside, but the wife, she went in, the poor Brahmin. And he went inside, and she went inside. And he was thinking, oh, wow, I've really scored today. I just wanted some lusty things, but here we go. I'm getting a meal as well. And so he ate a bit of this, the remnants of Ramanujacharya. Imagine how fortunate this merchant is to eat the remnants of Srila Ramanujacharya. And so he took one bite. He was thinking, wow, this is really nice. He took another bite. Another bite, another bite. And by the time he had finished, you could say the merchant had died. Because the person who was sitting there was a completely different person. Merely by honoring the remnants of the pure devotee, his heart had been completely transformed. And looking at the woman that only a few minutes before he had so many lusty plans in his heart to do whatever with, he looked at her and with hands together he said, Mataji, with tears coming down from his eyes. He said, Mataji, I had so many terrible plans of what to do to you, but only by your mercy, only by the mercy of a pure devotee like yourself, I have been purified from all of those desires. I only ask you one thing, please take me to your spiritual master. And then, the pastime goes on for a bit, but I'll abbreviate it, she brings him to Ramanujacharya. And before Ramanujacharya, he begs the merchant. He says, Haha Prabhu koro doya, deho more padachaya. He asks, please, I want nothing but the shelter of your lotus feet. And Ramanujacharya says, only I will give you initiation, but your dakshina must be, you must give all of your money to this poor Brahmin disciple of mine. I do not want to see him struggle in order to be able to worship the devotees so much. And the merchant said, Gurudev, I will do this instantly, but only on one qualification. I only ask you one thing. Gurudev, please give me the mercy that you will never allow me to be rich. Please give me the mercy that you always allow me to be poor. Please let me be as poor as this Brahmin, because the wealth is what filled my heart with so much lust. And Ramanujacharya, who was very pleased to see that this person had been so purified by the glories of Mahaprasad. And he said, I thank you, merchant, for giving me the association of such a great Mahatma. And then he initiated him. And then Yagyesh, from the beginning of this pastime, that rich disciple, he came, and Ramanujacharya, he said, what are you doing here? And he said, Gurudev, why didn't you come to my house? I was getting ready to prepare and everything. Ramanujacharya said, you have blasphemed your godbrothers, and therefore I want nothing to do with you. And Yagyesh, he said, Gurudev, it was not because I saw my godbrothers as low. It was only because I became so excited to serve you, my spiritual master, that in my excitement, I became the greatest fool and I neglected them. And hearing this, Ramanujacharya, he says, okay, you had a simple heart, I understand. I forgive you then. And the next time I come here, I will stay at your house. But anyways, this is the